Maple Leafs lose and fail to make up ground to the Boston Bruins. Is there cause for concern with the Maple Leafs middle six? All that more coming up on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf centered podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. You can find our podcast on whichever platform you use to get your pods, and we can also be found up on YouTube. And just a reminder, we're on our road to 5K subscribers. We need just under 300 more, and we're giving away a Leafs jersey when that happens. So the quicker we get to 5K, the quicker one of you 5,000 listeners will get an opportunity to win yourself a Maple Leafs jersey. We'll tell you guys the details on how we'll be doing that giveaway once that happens. So hopefully it happens quicker rather than later. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. What's going on, Dave? How you feeling?
Well, it was not a great night, let's just say.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get over this cold, and the last thing I wanted to see was that game because I wanted to vomit after that.
Yeah, so I was out for dinner last night, and I was trying to keep an eye on the TV as much as possible. And anytime I looked over, it seemed like the puck was on the Bruins stick. Like they were like dominating, especially like the back half of the first. I was able to watch a little bit more of that, and yeah, they were really pushing there. And ultimately, the Bruins end up winning this game 4-1. And like what's so annoying about this Leafs team is just when you start to get hope and just when you start to think one way about the squad, they typically zag on you. And then it's like, okay, well, what is this team? What is this team?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that this game undoes what they've done over the course of the last month. I think they've played some really good hockey, but like some of those habits start to creep up. And then you realize, okay, if you're not getting the secondary scoring from that Nylander line, or if you're not getting a goal from McMahon, or the power play's not clicking, there's still some warts in this team's game that do need to get cleaned up ahead of the playoffs if they want to do anything.
No, for sure. Like there is a lack of consistency there. And I mean, if you really want to know what went right and what went wrong for the Leafs, not a lot went right for the Leafs, but what went right for Boston was David Pastrnak accounted for pretty much set up 3 of the 4 goals.
Yeah.
The Leafs' top guys, the only one that did anything, the only forward with the point was John Tavares.
Yeah. Great shot, by the way. Great shot.
Great play altogether. Like Lyubushkin to Riley to Tavares, bing, bang, done. Bruins did that quite a bit in this game, and no one else from the Leafs could do it.
Yeah, they did. I thought that Sheldon Keefe's comments after the game were interesting. He was actually much more tame and calm than I thought he was going to be honest with you. But he basically came out and said, "Look, there was a lot of good. Like I thought we played good tonight." He said, "But against a team like Boston, good isn't good enough. You got to play great." And that's the type of teams that you're going to be playing in the postseason too, right? A team that's big, that's nasty, a team that'll fight in front of the net, fight for that space, fight for that area. And Toronto just a little more unwilling to do it tonight. The Bruins, I thought, won that net front game, both in their own end and in Toronto's zone. And that's ultimately, was kind of costly tonight for them. A couple of goals in and around the net that they allowed. And, that's kind of the difference in tonight's game. You mentioned John Tavares, and look, I think that line has played really well the last couple of games, and Tavares in particular has, kind of seemingly stepping up his game over the last couple. And you can look at it one of two ways. Of course he's now on a third line, which means, he's playing other teams, he's playing lesser opponents, right? The strength of opponent isn't as good, so it allows him to shine more. But I also wonder if it has anything to do with like the ice time, like the fact that okay, we're gonna only give you like 15 minutes tonight, but you can excel in those 15 minutes and you don't have to go out there and play 20 minutes of hockey, right? So like that could be tiring him out, but you give him 15 compact minutes. I wonder if that's kind of just what's best for his legs at this point in his career. But I thought that third line was real solid. Him, McMahon, and Yarncroc. Keefe gave them, some good words as well after the game, saying that they're, all puck hounds. They're always attacking the puck. But I do have concerns with this second line at this point. This is a few games here in a row now where, okay, if they're not scoring, typically they're being scored on, and that's kind of an issue here, right? So you look at the numbers, right? That they were scored on last night, but also the expected goals. I think they were like 34%. Yeah, 34% as a line last night in expected goals, which it's not great, and this is a few games here in a row. I think I saw Domi like 7 straight games, sub 50% expected goals. And now you're kind of in a bind if you are this Leafs team. You're thinking to yourself, how much longer of rope can we give this second line of Domi with Nylander and Tyler Bertuzzi, while also juggling the fact that Tavares seems to be excelling in his new role, with those limited minutes, giving him maybe more fresher legs throughout these games. It's going to be an interesting conundrum for Sheldon Keefe.
It is, and to me, I don't even think you touch that Tavares line. Like if it's working, you can't touch it. And if let's say one or two things have to happen. And honestly, I don't think the first is going to happen. Is you try to get that line to play more defensively reliable. It hasn't happened. I don't know if it's going to happen. Right? Like it hasn't. You talked about it. It's been a stretch of games that it's been like this. It's not one or two games. The last game, Nylander got benched for 6 minutes for basically Sheldon Keefe sending him to the sin bin for not playing to the structure. And then somebody brought up to me that overtime against the Rangers, where that play where Samsonov had to make the amazing save, it only happened because Nylander decided to go off the ice and do a line change and left the Leafs on a 3-on-2.
Yeah.
Like things like that, it's happened all season long. I just think that if you're going to look for something different, that's a line you're going to have to make a change on in some way, shape, or form.
Well, what are you going to do? Like if you're not moving Tavares back up there, what are you going to put Pontus Holmberg in the middle?
Well, that's the issue. You can't trust that'd be unfair to put Pontus Holmberg in a top line, a top 6 role.
But outside of Tavares and Yarncroc, I guess. But if you're not touching that line, there is no one else. So that leads the question is that now maybe a quiet need going into the deadline is upgrading down the middle and someone who can maybe play a little bit more reliable defensively in your own zone?
It hasn't gone away, and I don't know if it probably won't go away until either a change is made on that line. And look, I'm not all favor of just changing lines willy-nilly, like if things are working, right? Someone suggested me maybe you need to put Marner on that line just to get that defensive mindset there, but I don't think Marner alone is going to change and make Max Domi a better defender.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think you probably have to look at that center position, because again, but the problem is who's out there. All the players that would be targets, that's your first round pick probably.
Yeah,
right?
which is fine. Like that,
Yeah.
I'll give that up if it improves the club in the top 6. That's the type
Yeah.
of thing that I think is worth giving up for first
Right.
round pick. I don't be worried about that, but who's out there?
Exactly.
Like if you look at the trade bait boards, there's not really someone that screams to me, okay, he's a bona fide number 2 center or top line. Like it's just not there. Like it was Elias Lindholm, and that's about it. I suppose Gensel is that guy, but I don't know if the Leafs are in on Gensel at this point. He would be the only person, but again, he's injured. I don't know when he's coming back. Like he's going to be out for a little bit. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how much more run that second line gets together. But it's been a few games in a row here where yeah, they're scoring and they're getting their opportunities, but they're fishing a lot of pucks out of their own net, and it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing, and especially when it's happening at home. Like
Mhm.
that's, I mean, at home you can at least protect these guys, right? You can shelter them with a lot of ozone starts, but they still end up fishing pucks out of the back of their net. So, yeah, that's going to be something going forward over the next couple of games that I'll definitely be keeping my eye on. And now, kind of a storyline to watch heading into the deadline is, do they get more depth down the middle so that they can, put someone else in that spot if they don't want to put Tavares there and break up that third line? An interesting situation that's brewing here for Toronto. All right, let's come back and let's get into the game a little bit more. We'll dive into it, get through our good, the bad, and the ugly. And then we got some news and notes from around the league, including a couple other defensive targets that have popped up for the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll tell you those names on the other side. It's Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Sleeper. It's almost a halfway point in the season, Leaf fans, and regardless of where we are in the current standings, I want to remind you that you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper. It's the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. Because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you got to do is pick whether studs like Crosby, McKinnon, McDavid, Matthews, or will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. To win 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Leaf fans? You can win 100 times your money by playing the daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. We're recapping a 4-1 loss to the Boston Bruins last night. Sheldon Keefe said the team played good, but good is not good enough against a team like Boston. Got to play great. And, well, we do this after every Leafs loss. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly from the game. So why don't we start with the good? What did you like? What did you see that you liked in last night's game, Dave?
I mean, we talked about it quite a bit in the first segment, but the third line, like that, I was struggling most of that game, like thinking about, okay, I'm preparing for the good, bad, and the ugly. When they got up to 3-0, I'm like, what the heck am I going to do is good? That was really the only good.
Yeah, honestly, it kind of was, which is sad that your third line stood out to you. I mean, it's the only line that scored a goal, right? John Tavares, nice little rip. But like he in particular, I really liked his game. Like I went back and I watched it afterwards, and I liked his game a lot, And I was actually looking up this. I don't know what is going on with the like stat counters and hit counters in the NHL these days. I know they went back and they like adjusted all their hits, but now this just seems out of whack. Do you know that John Tavares had 9 hits last night? He was recorded to have 9 hits. Like that just that just seems weird to me. Like the fact that John Tavares recorded 9 hits in like 16 minutes of ice time. But 4 shots on goal. Obviously, he scored the lone goal for the Leafs in that game, and he was pretty good in the faceoff dot as well. And he's somebody who, again, he's relishing in this new role. Whether or not he gets to stay there or if he has to bump back up into the top 6, I'm not sure. But he's been playing pretty well. And last night, I thought he was one of, if not the best Leafs player on the ice last night.
Yeah, I mean that's going to be Sheldon Keefe is going to really. That's going to be the toughest part, I think, over the next couple of days, is determining if he has to kind of bite the bullet and move John Tavares, because I think Tavares has played really well over this stretch, and you wonder though, maybe the confidence that he has in himself maybe moving him might not be the worst idea right now, just to get that second line in check. Because as good as John Tavares has been as a third liner, that second line needs to be better.
Yeah, exactly. What was bad about last night's game, Dave?
Bad special teams.
Mm-hmm. Had the exact same thing.
Not good, man. Like when you have opportunities against Boston, you got to take advantage. And now look, I was one of those people that thought that puck went in on Austin Matthews on the goal line.
Well, everyone's celebrating. Like, and that was close, man. Like, it's a really, really nice play to swipe that puck off the line. Like, give credit where it's due to Boston, but it was so close, and an inch away from fully crossing over that line, and it would have been a totally different game if that puck goes in. But obviously, it did not, and the Leafs, even like a couple of seconds later, like Matthews just heals a puck, and then Swayman just gets a glove on it. But it's like that seemed like, all right, he's gonna get one here. Like that was the only time the power play looked good, because that the first power play they got, holy smokes, dude! Like they couldn't even break into the zone. Like it was ugly, and it gave Boston the momentum, and then they went out and they scored, on their power play right afterward. Which was that the Nyes penalty? That one,
that hooking penalty that he took, I'm pretty sure.
so bogus. Honestly, like that should have been a dive on McAvoy. Like that's just ridiculous right there. But anyways, I'm not going to spend time talking about the refs. But yeah, the Leafs last night 0 for 4 on the power play, just 1 for 2 on the penalty kill. So special teams, obviously a big factor in last night's game, and it's a big reason as to why Boston had a lot of the momentum coming out of those for killing off all 4 of those power plays, and Toronto was not able to kill all theirs off. So that's kind of was a big difference in last night's game.
It was in playoff games. What have we seen? It's this team's power play isn't clicking when they get their opportunity. Like, don't be yelling at the refs to give you power play opportunities if you're not going to score. Like let's not get on the refs if they're not going to be able to score on them.
Yeah, I suppose that's one way to look at it. I mean, again, the power play, like last month, was 50%. Like, I mean, when they get their opportunities, they're usually scoring. So I'm not going to sit here and bury them. The power play has been pretty solid over the course of the last month. Tonight, not so much. And they'll look at the tape and they'll figure out why. I mean, I guess after the first period, I'm sure they did look at it and be like, why aren't we gaining entry into the zone? Like, what's going on? What do we got to do? And there's some slight adjustments, and they found a little bit more success. At least we're able to set up in the offensive zone for the second period power plays. But overall, yeah, not a good night for the Leafs special teams. The ugly, I mean, I think we're going to be aligned on this once again. The Brodie and Liljegren pairing, not great on the ice for a couple of goals and a 21% expected goal rating. Expected goal differential rating. It wasn't good. Like those guys were giving up a lot of chances. They're on the ice for a lot of opportunities against, and obviously a couple of goals against as well. And it just didn't look good. We're looking at this game card, and Hockey Stat Cards was putting out this. They put these out after every game. And the game score, basically, you want to be as far to the right as possible. And go figure, John Tavares, the top player, is as far to the right with a lot more of the dark green. And that dark green means, was that the on ice offense? I think it is what that one means. And then you do not want to be far to the left. That is not good. So a -3 game score for Timothy Liljegren, and then just behind him was T.J. Brodie, and a lot of dark purple, which means negative defensively. They were negative defensively or offensively rather, and then negative defensively as well. They pretty much didn't do a whole lot of anything of any good last night, according to this sheet, this game score that we're looking at here on the YouTube elements, the video elements of the Locked On Leaf show.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to really really figure out how bad. Like, were they unlucky or were they just really bad? And then I saw that game card. I'm like, yeah, no, it can. My assertion of they were really bad was right. Like, especially Liljegren. I said the other day when we were talking about what this team needs to look at this week, I said, I need to see if they need to upgrade on Timothy Liljegren. Can he show that what he was doing the last few games was, is he going in the right direction, or do they need to look at an upgrade there? If that's how he's going to play against a team like Boston, it ain't happening. I don't know. Like he was like there was some plays where he wasn't strong with his like conviction of what he's trying to do with the puck. It gets turned over and he's in a bad position, and then there's an odd man rush. The worst one was the last goal where Zach goes right to the net. He has no idea Zaka's behind him. I don't know what he's puck watching. And Zaka's there for two. He gets 2-3 whacks at it before beating Joseph Woll.
Yeah.
The goaltender can't defend and
down.
the puck.
He sat down and had himself a pint.
Yeah, exactly.
While waiting for Brodie or for Liljegren to come back and defend on that play. Yeah, it wasn't a good night for them. I mean, similar to what we were talking about with special teams and that power play and that second line, we've seen enough good hockey, I guess, out of that pairing over the last little bit. You'll give them the benefit of the doubt that tonight just a bit of an off game for them. But I'll be watching them pretty closely in Buffalo and then again in Boston on Thursday to decipher. Okay, can Liljegren play in these types of games? Because don't forget, last couple of years, Lily's been the guy who's been up in the press box. Like Sheldon Keefe clearly looks at him and is unsure if he can handle playoff hockey.
Yeah.
And, he's obviously another year into his career. He's approaching that 200 game mark where you kind of figure out, okay, what is a defenseman at that point? We'll see over the next couple of games what he thinks of Liljegren, and potentially that means they could go out and make an addition. Maybe there's another player that they feel strongly about. Maybe Liljegren could be packaged in a deal. I don't know. Or Liljegren becomes again like the seventh defenseman for this team. I don't know how things are going to shake out. But last night, not good. And they got to be better. They have to be better for certainty going forward. Because if you're going to throw these guys out there for 18, 19 minutes a game, they can't be losing 21% of their minutes. They gave up a team high 11 shots on goal at 5-on-5 when they were out there as a pair. Like, you just can't give up those opportunities like that and expect to win a whole lot of hockey games. So I'll call it an off night. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt because Brodie and Lily's actually been a decent pairing over the last little bit. Certainly while Morgan Rielly was out there with his suspension. So hopefully they regroup, and then in Buffalo we see a much better duo come out, and then all will be forgotten probably by Leafs Nation. That being said, if not, maybe the Leafs go shopping for another right-handed defenseman at the deadline. It certainly seems like they're still calling and poking around on some guys. Let's come back and talk a little bit about what we're hearing just a few days out from the NHL trade deadline and a couple of the names that the Leafs are being linked to and some other hot button topics around the NHL. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the price you want, eBay, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Hello and welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti with you. Just a reminder, it's a daily Maple Leaf centric podcast. We got new episodes coming out each and every weekday morning, Monday through Friday. You can find it on whichever platform you use to download your podcast audio wise. And also you can watch the video format of this podcast on YouTube as well. And once we get to 5K, we're giving away that jersey. So make sure that you are subscribed and give yourself an opportunity to win a Leafs jersey. We need just under 300, man. We're close. We are close to our goal. I think it might be doable. It might be doable by deadline day, or perhaps like over the course of the weekend of deadline. I'm by Monday. I'm hoping that we can hit 5K. So hopefully, share it with your friends and family and let them know, what we do here at Locked On Leafs. If you're a diehard Leaf fan, got to be subbed up. Got to be subbed up. All right. Let's talk a little bit about what we're hearing heading into the NHL trade deadline from a Maple Leafs perspective, and then a couple of big newsy items from around the league as well that's happened over the course of the last 24 hours. First and foremost, it sounds like the Leafs are still kicking tires on some more right shot defensemen, some rugged right shot defensemen. What are a couple of the names that you've heard, Dave?
Well, Chris Johnson, by the way, congratulations to Steve Dangle on the birth of his baby girl.
Ah, yes.
He took Steve's spot on the SDP on the podcast, and he put out 3 names that he's heard or that he's kind of thinks about as fits for the Leafs. The first one really surprised the heck out of me. Zach Bogosian. Who, okay, people are going to hear that name and think, yuck. But actually, since he's left the Tampa Bay Lightning and went to the Minnesota Wild, he's been much better. Now, has that also been a factor of who he's playing with in Minnesota? Because Minnesota actually has pretty good blue liners, more than likely. But this is also someone that the Leafs are familiar with, and Sheldon Keefe is very familiar with. So that's one name out there. I know the Wild are looking to sign him, but if they can't sign him, they're going to trade him. The second one, and this name just won't go away, Matt Dumba. That name just continues to be out there. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it too much, but from what I've seen from Dumba, it hasn't looked good. I don't know how much better it's going to look for the Leafs, but a lot of people have been talking Dumba. CJ brought up Dumba. And then the third one, one that I don't think it's going to happen, but CJ thinks that if the Leafs pony up a little bit more, it would happen. It's David Savard for the Montreal Canadiens, who, look, the style-wise fits what the Leafs need. Price-wise, I don't think so, because I think Montreal is going to definitely want a first for Savard, and I don't even know. I don't remember if Savard has trade protection. I don't think he.
I think he does. It might be limited, but I think there is some trade protection there for Savard, and he's got one more year left on his deal. So there's
actually
no
trade protection.
Oh, really? Okay, I thought I had read that he had a little bit of a say in what happens with him, but maybe it was somebody else who I was reading.
Maybe it's just an implied,
yeah, they want to do good by him potentially. Yeah, like he's got another year left on his deal, I believe, as well.
$3.5 million for one more year,
and he's making what, 3.25,
$3.5 million,
$3.5 million, which it's digestible, and maybe you can find a team to take a chunk of that, perhaps. Yeah, that would be an interesting name. I think of the 3 that you mentioned, like Savard is probably the best of the trio. In terms of giving up your first round pick, like you should have done it for Chris Tanev, because Tanev is a better defenseman than David Savard. So, like, now that being said, Tanev was a UFA. Savard you can get 2 years out of. That is worth noting, obviously, but still, like, I mean, go get the better player.
Yeah.
You're willing to pony up a first round pick.
Exactly. Go get the guy who you know for a fact can be a top 4.
Right. Because like Savard has the same issues, injury issues, age issues. It's the same cons that you have with Tanev. So if you're willing to pony up a first rounder for a second pair defenseman, and I'm not even sure Savard is that. Like, he's more of a 5, we'll say, than at least a bona fide 3-4 like Tanev. Then you should have just done that deal. Well, I mean, that deal might not have been there, I suppose, but we heard if Toronto wanted to pony up a first, they could have got Tanev. They just didn't want to do that. I would be floored if they gave up a first for Savard. Yeah, I wonder if center is now like a possibility though too. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like Adam Henrique is a name that's kind of been floating out there a little bit as someone who's going to be on the block and probably going to be traded pending UFA out in Anaheim, and he's a good, serviceable middle six centerman. You know, is Adam Henrique a name that would interest you? Because he's someone who could come in and he can play, on both sides of the puck. He's a good two-way forward. He's very reliable defensively, and he can, provide a little bit of offense as well. Like that's somebody who I think would be willing, would be worth giving up a first round pick for.
Yeah, like I think you have to value what that like the not just the player, but the position they're playing and the role they're playing. I'd rather pay up a first round pick to go and get a top 6 guy than go and get a third pairing defenseman. Like it just one guy's gonna be on the ice more and have a more play a more substantial role. Like to me, I don't know if you agree with this. I think Ilya Lyubushkin, the whole thing was overblown because he's actually not looked bad the last 2 games. Like since the 2 games he's played. Granted, the first game he had to leave because of the he had to clear concussion protocols. But I don't think he was an issue last night against Boston. Like
No.
that's someone I'm comfortable playing. Like, now am I saying that adding him makes the Leafs done on adding on defense? No, because we just said that you'd really want to upgrade and get another right shot guy if you could, or even just maybe at this rate, any defenseman that can play better, right? In the top 4. But yeah, I think you have to really weigh how much you're spending, what you're like that first round pick. You're gonna look at it on the back on a few years and say, was it worth giving up that first round pick to go and get a third pairing defenseman? Or hey, that first round pick landed us a top 6 guy that really helped kind of solidify the lineup a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see what the Leafs end up doing at the deadline. A few more days. It's Friday. So, there's still gonna be a bunch of phone calls that I'm sure will be that'll be made, and hopefully Friday's a busy day in Toronto, part of it making a splash of some kind. We'll see. We will definitely wait and see what happens there. A couple other big news items from around the NHL. Lindy Ruff let go, fired in New Jersey. A little late on this one, Dave. Like, did they kind of pull the trigger a little late? I don't
I
know.
think so. Well, the only reason why I say so is like, well, you weren't willing to go out and fix your goaltending. Why did you wait
Yeah,
so long then to fight? Like
and
Travis
then
Green has taken
Tom
over.
Fitzgerald comes out and says, the next couple of games is going to dictate what we do at the deadline. Play the Panthers tonight in
Yeah.
your first game. So that's one game where it's like, okay, well, good luck with that one. In Travis Green's first game, and then they got the Blues, who are a pretty solid team as well, and then they got the Hurricanes over the weekend. So like they've got a tough sked coming up, and I think I was looking, they have one of the tougher schedules down the stretch here. Let me see, strength of schedule for the Devils. I'm pretty sure they have one of the hardest strength of schedules the rest of the way, which makes it an even more difficult decision if you are, this Devils team.
Now, look, in Lindy Ruff's defense, he lost Dougie Hamilton. Like that's
Mhm.
not an easy thing for a lot of teams to overcome. And the
Th-
goaltending was already brutal, right?
Terrible, terrible. Everyone knew last summer they needed
Yeah.
new goaltending, and they didn't do it. They didn't get it. So,
No.
and all summer, all winter, it's been like they got to trade for one of these guys. They got to trade for Markstrom. They got to get new goaltending, and it just never happened. And apparently now they've circled back on Markstrom, and they're willing to uh, take on that full freight of his contract. We'll see if something ends up happening. But Calgary is starting to win some games too. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting the next 72 plus hours in Jersey. But in terms of their strength of schedule, they have the third hardest schedule remaining in the NHL. So tough schedule. They still have 3 games against Toronto.
Yeah,
Wow.
they haven't really played Toronto this year, so
Yeah,
They're
3
good or bad
games.
thing for the Leafs.
3 games against the Maple Leafs from here on out. The Leafs, by the way, have the 6th hardest strength of schedule remaining. Boston has the 5th hardest. So Boston's got a harder sked than Toronto. Florida is 8th. So they're all kind of in the same little pocket
Toronto's
here.
heavy
Boston, Toronto, and
Eastern
Florida.
Conference from now to the end of the season. That I know for sure.
So Toronto's hardest opponents that they've got to play, their toughest opponents, they've got 2 against Florida. They've got 1 more against Boston, which is going to be this Thursday. They've got 1 more against Edmonton, 2 games against Carolina, and they've got 2 against Tampa and 1 against the Red Wings. So they've got a lot of divisional games. It's a tough division, which is why all of these teams do happen to be in the top 8 in the division. Actually, of the top 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the top 8 are Atlantic teams. That's how tough this division is. They all got to play each other, and they all have good records at this point. Who's got the easiest sked? Minnesota and Chicago. They don't need an easy schedule, but they got one. But yeah, anyways, when it comes to the Devils, I like Travis Green. I thought he did a decent job when he was in Vancouver. I've heard nothing but good things as him as a coach and a person. We'll see if they can find a way to claw back in. I mean, they're like 7 or 8 points out of a playoff spot. They do got a couple games in hand, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough if they don't get goaltending. It's going to be much of the same the rest of the way. So we'll see what happens there. Actually, I wanted to talk quickly about, because I've talked about this on the show before, how I'm a big card collector. Did you see the bounty on a specific Connor Bedard card?
I was floored when I saw that come out. Like,
so I wrote about this on the Hockey News, so you guys can go check it out. It's all over my Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. A company called David Adams. They've been in the collectibles industry. They're like a card and collectibles company. They've been there, they've been in the industry for many, many years. And they typically have bounties on like highly sought after cards. So Series 2 is going to release on Wednesday, tomorrow. And inside of it is Connor Bedard's Young Guns, which is going to be very highly sought after. But this year they've done something different with the Young Guns. They've added extra parallels, and one includes a 1-of-1 gold outburst Young Guns parallel. So it's going to be the only one in the world, and David Adams has set a bounty on it for whoever gets it at $1 million. $1 million for a hockey card that anyone can open. Like, it's going to be available to the public. There's obviously only one, but it's going to be randomly inserted in a pack, and one lucky person is going to open this bad boy up when they hit the shelves on Wednesday morning, and we'll see how long it takes for someone to find it. But $1 million bounty on this, it's just absolutely insane, if you ask me. It's crazy what people pay sometimes for some of these hockey cards.
You know who's going to be very happy to see that? Upper Deck, because everyone's now going to flock to the stores and buy a bunch of packs.
100%. Like, part of this is a marketing.
I might even dabble and go and get a few myself.
Well, so here's the thing. Yeah, you can go buy a couple of packs if you'd like, but they're going to be expensive. They're all right. The boxes, I wrote about this too. The boxes for Bedard's, like for this Series 2 set, is like $330 is what it's retailing right now, which is an increase of 106% from what Series 1 was going for back in November.
Yeah, we're gonna need some more subscribers to the podcast for it.
Yeah, it's expensive. Now I got some pre-orders in, so I got them at a bit of a cheaper rate, but like now they're going for more. Like, if you're gonna walk into your card store, you're probably gonna be paying over $300 for.
What happened to the days where you can go to Walmart, get some hockey cards?
I mean, you still could do that. Retail doesn't come out until the 13th, I believe. But even then, like, you're probably looking at $100 for like a tin, or you can get a couple of these packs randomly, I suppose. But this 1-of-1 will not be in those packs. I think the 1-of-1 The $1 million card will only be available in the hobby boxes, which are going to run you $300 a pop plus.
The game has changed. The game has changed.
The game has changed, that's for sure. But it's a game that I love and that I'm passionate about. And when I saw that bounty get released yesterday by David Adams, my jaw dropped to the floor. And
You're saying a hope and a prayer now, man.
Well, even the regular Young Guns, which there's going to be thousands of them, but the regular Young Guns is pre-selling it for like $1,500 for his regular Young Guns. It's wild, man. Like the mania about this card, about this set is just running rampant. And then this bounty came out, and now it's going to be even more of a frenzy. And it all starts tomorrow, March 6th. March 6th is the release day. I'll be all over it. I've got myself a couple of boxes that I'll be opening up. I'll be on the hunt for the Bedard 1/1, and you can follow along on Twitter. I'll be posting things, or on my cards Instagram, a.b.cards on Instagram as well. If Instagram wasn't working this morning. Facebook and Instagram both were down. I don't know if it's back up yet or what, but Meta's really, really screwing with us right now. No, look at as of now, as of 11:30, still not up, still not working. I don't know what's going on there. Anyways, all right, let's we'll leave it there for today, Dave. That'll do it for us here on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms, including YouTube, for daily Maple Leafs content. You can follow myself on X, because no other website is working apparently right now other than X. You can follow me at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. If you enjoyed today's video, we ask that you leave a like on the video, leave us a little comment down below, and subscribe. Again, road to 5K. We're so close, under 300 subscribers left to get there, and then we will be giving away a jersey. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. The Leafs are playing the Buffalo Sabres. We will tee that game up, but until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.